I sit at my parents' polished oak dining table, running my finger along a familiar scratch near the edge mark from when Jessica knocked over Dad's antique globe stand during a tantrum when she was 9. No one mentioned it then. Some mistakes in our family are forgiven without a word. Others never seem to fade. The afternoon sun filters through Mom's pristine lace curtains, casting honeycomb patterns across framed family photos, lining the walls of this Midwestern shrine to manufactured happiness. Every image carefully curated: Jessica's dance recitals, Mom and Dad's 30th anniversary cruise, my college graduation where they stood just far enough away that my size wouldn't dominate the frame. Jessica's perfectly manicured hands flutter as she recounts the proposal story for the third time today. Her diamond catches the light, sending prisms dancing across the white tablecloth. And then Brad got down on one knee right there at Brookside Gardens. Her voice rises with practiced excitement. Everyone was watching, and this photographer just happened to be there and caught the whole thing. Serendipity, Mom sighs, clasping her hands beneath her chin. Just like a movie. I force my lips into what I hope resembles a smile. The scent of Mom's apple pie wafts from the kitchen, cinnamon and nostalgia mingling into something that once meant comfort but now feels like a noose tightening around my throat. Dad emerges from the kitchen carrying a bottle of champagne, his face flushed with pride. His calls for a proper celebration, my baby girl, getting married. He pours golden liquid into flutes that Mom reserves for special occasions that typically revolve around Jessica's accomplishments. I've never warranted the good crystal. To Jessica and Brad, Dad raises his glass. To a beautiful wedding and a beautiful life. We clink glasses. I take a small sip, the bubbles bitter on my tongue. Jessica turns to me, her smile sharp as a paper cut. So, Amanda, what do you think about being my maid of honor? Something warm unfurls in my chest, a dangerous feeling called hope. After all these years, could this be an olive branch? A chance to repair what broke between us somewhere between childhood and now? I'd be honored, I say, meaning it despite everything. Jessica nods, satisfied, then tilts her head. Her eyes narrow slightly as she examines me over the rim of her champagne flute. But why are you still fat? You need to look presentable at my wedding. The room goes silent. My champagne glass freezes halfway to my lips. I mean, you'll be in all the photos, Mom adds, as if this clarifies everything, as if this makes what Jessica said perfectly reasonable. Dad nods, his expression a mixture of concern and disappointment. The photographer Jessica wants books up a year in advance. That gives you plenty of time to, you know. He gestures vaguely at all of me. The casual cruelty delivered between sips of celebration champagne is so familiar I almost laugh. Almost. Instead, I'm 12 again, walking into the kitchen after school with tear-stained cheeks because Melissa Harper called me hippo hips during gym class. Jessica sitting at the same table with her friends, giggling behind their hands when I entered. Mom, the girls at school were making fun of me again, I had said, my voice small. Mom barely looked up from cutting vegetables. They're just being kids, Amanda. Maybe if you tried a little harder with your appearance. Jessica smirked at her friends, secure in her position as the pretty one, the thin one, the right one. I'm 17, graduating with honors while Jessica, a sophomore, rolled her eyes during my valedictorian speech. Later at dinner, Mom fussed over how the graduation gown did nothing for my figure while Dad asked why I couldn't tone down the academic talk during my address. I'm 22, showing them my acceptance letter to Boston University's MBA program. Boston's so far, Mom had said, frowning. And city living is so expensive. Wouldn't it make more sense to stay closer to home? You could lose some weight, meet someone nice. Every month since, phone calls peppered with health concerns and just worried about you, and Jessica's friend is a dietitian if you want her number. The distance between Jessica and me grew wider, as she became the perfect daughter who fulfilled their every expectation: beautiful, socially adept, engaged to a man from the right kind of family. I take a slow sip of water, my champagne abandoned. Something shifts inside me, a tectonic plate finally giving way after years of pressure. I straighten my shoulders slightly, just enough that I feel a change in my spine. Congratulations again, Jessica, I say with a polite smile that never reaches my eyes. I'm sure it will be a beautiful wedding. I glance at my watch. 14 months until the wedding. 14 months to decide who I want to be when I return to this table. The wedding invitation clings to my refrigerator door, secured by a magnet from a Chinese restaurant that closed 3 years ago. Cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing Jessica's impeccable taste on display. I stare at it every morning while my coffee brews, the cursive letters blurring as tears well in my eyes. 14 months. The countdown ticks in my head like a time bomb. I wipe away the tears with the back of my hand, surprising myself when frustration replaces the familiar sadness. The coffee machine gurgles its final protest, and I pour the dark liquid into my mug. World's best dog, Mom. Even though my apartment doesn't allow pets. A gag gift from Sarah at the office Christmas party. Something snaps inside me as I take the first bitter sip. Not dramatically, not with thunder or revelation, but with the quiet certainty of a rubber band stretched too far for too long. Enough, I whisper to my empty kitchen. The neighborhood gym sits 3 blocks from my apartment. I've passed it hundreds of times, averting my eyes from the wall of windows showcasing fit bodies in motion. Today I force myself to look as I push open the heavy glass door. The chemical smell of disinfectant mingles with sweat and determination. "First time?" asks the woman at the front desk, her smile practiced but not unkind. I nod, clutching my newly purchased water bottle like a shield. "Mike's got an opening for an assessment in 15 minutes if you're interested." She gestures toward a broad-shouldered man adjusting weights on a machine across the room. "Army vet. Best trainer we've got." Mike doesn't look like what I expected. No flashy clothes or perfect hair. Just a middle-aged man with salt and pepper stubble and eyes that assess without judging. "So what brings you here today?" he asks after introductions, his clipboard raised. I open my mouth to mention Jessica's wedding, but something stops me. "I'm tired of feeling like a stranger in my own body," I say instead, surprising myself with the truth. He nods, making a single note. "That's the only reason that sticks. Let's get started." The assessment is humiliating, a catalog of everything I can't do. Muscles I didn't know existed scream in protest. My face burns red with exertion after just 5 minutes on the treadmill. I can't hold a plank for more than 10 seconds. Mike doesn't comfort me with platitudes or false encouragement. He simply records data, occasionally correcting my form with firm hands that never linger. When we finish, he studies his clipboard while I gulp water, my legs trembling. "Tuesdays, Thursdays, 6 a.m., he says finally. "And 1 weekend session. You'll hate me for the first month. The second too." "I already hate everyone," I mutter, not meaning for him to hear. He barks a laugh. "Good. Channel that. The first workout is worse than the assessment." I leave the gym convinced I'm dying, muscles screaming with each step. The second is marginally better only because I know what torture to expect. By the 3rd week, doubt has become my constant companion. "I can't do this," I gasp during a particularly brutal set of kettlebell swings. Sweat drips from my hairline, stinging my eyes. My shoulders burn like they're being torn from their sockets. "4 more," Mike says, unmoved by my distress. I said I can't. "You said you were tired of being a stranger in your body." His voice drops, gentler but somehow more insistent. "This is how you introduce yourself." I finish the set, then collapse onto the mat, lungs heaving. "This isn't about them anymore, is it?" Mike asks, handing me a towel. The question catches me off guard. "Who?" "Whoever you were trying to prove something to when you walked in that first day." I don't answer, but the question follows me home. Whispers to me as I ease my aching body into an Epsom salt bath. Echoes as I carefully measure portions for meal prep Sunday with recipes from the nutritionist Mike recommended. During our 8th week, something shifts. I'm struggling through a final set of push-ups, modified but still brutal, when Mike says, 2 more. Do them for Jessica." I freeze, arms shaking in the half-plank position. "What did you say?" "The wedding." "Isn't that why you're here? For Jessica's wedding?" I lower myself to the floor, then push back up with a strength that surprises us both. "I'm not doing this for Jessica." Another push-up, cleaner than any I've done before. Or my parents. One more for good measure, rage fueling my muscles. I'm doing this for me. Mike's smile is brief but genuine. Finally, Sarah from accounting becomes my walking partner after she comments on my consistent morning arrival time. I'm trying to build better habits, she says, falling into step beside me one morning. Mind if I join your routine? We start walking 3 lunch breaks a week, then add Saturday mornings in the park near my apartment. She doesn't ask about my weight loss, focuses instead on her divorce proceedings and her son's baseball games. I find myself looking forward to our conversations, the easy friendship that forms without expectation or judgment. The weekend cooking group comes next to 8 strangers in a community center kitchen, learning to make meals that nourish rather than simply fill. I discover I love the texture of properly cooked vegetables, the complexity of spices that aren't buried under cheese or sauce. I learn to taste my food again. The journal begins as a food log but evolves into something more profound. I record feelings alongside facts, track patterns in my emotional eating, document small victories that have nothing to do with the scale sleeping through the night, climbing 3 flights of stairs without pausing, saying no to a project that would have overwhelmed me. Dr. Levine, the therapist I finally call after 3 months of workouts, helps me see the connections between my body and the family wounds I've carried since childhood. Your transformation is physical, she says during our second session, but your healing must be emotional. 6 months in, I catch a glimpse of myself in the gym mirror and don't immediately look away. My posture has changed, shoulders back, chin lifted. I'm smaller, yes, but also somehow more substantial. For the first time, I see my mother's cheekbones emerging, my father's strong jawline no longer hidden. I look like myself, only more so. When I finish my first 5K, Mike waiting at the finish line with an embarrassingly large sign. I feel something I haven't experienced in years spread that has nothing to do with other people's approval. The promotion at work comes as a surprise, though Sarah insists I've earned it. You speak up in meetings now, she points out over celebratory coffee. People listen when you talk. My new wardrobe comes piece by piece, clothes that fit properly. Colors I've always loved, but thought too bold. I donate bags of shapeless black garments, keeping one oversized sweater as a reminder. The final change happens on impulse. Sitting in the salon chair, I hear myself say, I want to go blonde, not platinum, something warm. Honey blonde. Are you sure? The stylist fingers my dark waves. It's a big change. I meet my own eyes in the mirror. I'm sure. 3 hours later, I hardly recognize myself, but for the first time, I feel fully seen. The blonde has always been Jessica's thing, her crown and glory. Now it frames my face like sunshine, bringing warmth to my green eyes that I never noticed before. 8 months before Jessica's wedding, I stand in my bathroom, wrapped in a towel after my shower. The mirror, once an enemy, now reflects a woman I'm still getting to know. My body bears the marks of my journalose skin at my abdomen. Stretch marks silvering my thighs, muscles defining my arms. Hello, I whisper to my reflection, the greeting of old friends who have much to discuss. I've been looking for you. I adjust the rearview mirror of my rental car one final time, catching my reflection. The honey blonde hair still startles me after 32 years of brunette. I smooth the collar of my fitted blue dress a shade that makes my green eyes pop and draw in a breath that fills my lungs completely. 14 months of change sit in this car with me, invisible companions for the return home. The house looks exactly the same, red brick colonial with white trim, Martha Stewart-worthy flower beds lining the curved walkway. Mom's prized hydrangeas nod their heavy blue heads in the spring breeze. Everything perfectly maintained, just like the family image. I grip the small overnight bag in my right hand, knuckles whitening. One more deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth, just like Dr. Levine taught me. The dashboard clock reads 4:58 p.m. I'm exactly 2 minutes early for family dinner and wedding planning discussions. My heels click against the concrete path, each step deliberate. The sound feels different now, confident, purposeful. The doorbell chime echoes inside, followed by Mom's distant, "Come in." I turn the brass knob and step inside. They're already gathered in the living room, Dad in his leather recliner with reading glasses perched on his nose, Mom and Jessica on the sofa, surrounded by bridal magazines. 3 heads turn toward me in unison. Mom's coffee cup freezes halfway to her lips. Dark liquid sloshes over the rim, staining the pristine cream-colored sofa, but she doesn't notice. Jessica's mouth falls open, lipstick perfect, but eyes widening in unmistakable shock. Dad removes his reading glasses slowly, as if they're somehow distorting his vision. 14 months of transformation stand in their entryway, and for once the Jenkins family has nothing to say. "Hi everyone." My voice sounds different in this house, clearer, steadier. Sorry if I'm a little... Mom recovers first, setting down her cup with a clatter. "Amanda? Is that? You look so... different." Jessica finishes, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. "You look like a completely different person," Dad says, rising from his chair. I hardly recognize my own daughter. The silence stretches between us like taffy, sweet on the surface, but with a tension that threatens to snap. I step further into the room, placing my bag beside the entry table. "You've lost so much weight," Mom finally manages, her voice a mixture of awe and something else, something that prickles the back of my neck. "About 80 pounds, I answer matter-of-factly. "I've been working her in Boston." 80 pounds? Jessica echoes, her voice higher than usual. That's incredible." Dad circles me like I'm a sculpture in a museum. "You must have been working out like crazy. You look great, kiddo." "Thank you." I accept their stunned compliments with a small smile, watching their faces carefully. The initial shock is shifting into something else. Mom's eyes narrow slightly. "I hope you didn't overdo it. Crash diets can be so dangerous." "No crash diet," I assure her. "Just consistent work with my trainer Mike, better nutrition and time." Jessica stands, smoothing her cream-colored dress. Did you get surgery or something? No way you look this good naturally." There it is, the first undermining jab. The familiar sting feels distant now, like watching someone else get pinched. "Just hard work," I repeat, meeting her gaze directly. "Well, sit down, Mom says, patting the sofa. "I made your favorite chicken casserole, though I suppose you don't eat that." "I eat everything in moderation now," I say, taking a seat across from them rather than squeezing between them sofa as expected. "The blonde is different," Mom adds, tilting her head, lips pursed. "It doesn't really suit you. Jessica's the blonde in the family." My sister touches her own platinum locks protectively, as if I'd somehow stolen them from her head. "Your mother's right," Dad chimes in, nodding decisively. "You've always been the brunette, Amanda. You should stick to what suits you." I feel my smile stiffen but keep it in place. I wanted a change. "But blonde isn't really you," Jessica insists, her voice sharpening. "And with the wedding photos, wouldn't it be better if you went back to your natural color?" Her eyes narrow slightly. "Seriously, did you get surgery? There's no way you look this good naturally. You must have done something else." "No surgery," I say, meeting her gaze directly. "Just 14 months of hard work." "Well," Mom interjects, "I hope you don't lose any more. You're starting to look gaunt in the face." Dad nods in agreement. "Don't overdo it. No one likes a woman who's too obsessed with her appearance." The irony of his statement hangs in the air between us, but only I seem to notice it. I watch their faces carefully, Mom's thinly veiled disapproval, Dad's uncomfortable frown, Jessica's tight smile. The realization washes over me in a wave of clarity. Their reactions have shifted from shock to something more calculated, a collective effort to reclaim control. For 14 months, I've been beyond their reach. For 14 months, I've been making choices without their input or criticism. For 14 months, I've been becoming someone they can't diminish with a casual word over dinner. And it terrifies them. "The wedding's still 4 months away," I say evenly. We can discuss hair color later. How are the plans coming along? Jessica launches into details about venue and flowers, but her eyes keep drifting back to me, assessing. Mom refills coffee cups, commenting that I must be hungry after my trip, that I shouldn't get too thin. Dad makes jokes about not recognizing his little girl anymore. Each comment lands like a small stone a knot, enough to wound but enough to mark territory. Each suggestion about my appearance comes wrapped in concern. Each compliment arrives with a subtle correction attached. I sit back in my chair, watching this familiar dance from a new vantage point. Their reactions are transforming before my eyes, the initial shock giving way to something more calculated. Mom's tight smile, Dad's furrowed brow, Jessica's rapid blinking when she looks at me. I recognize these signs now. They're recalibrating, adjusting to this unexpected shift in our family dynamic. The pattern is so clear now, the way they build walls of expectation, the way they've always moved the finish line whenever I approached it. The way success in their eyes was always conditional, always just beyond reach. This isn't about my weight. It never was. It was about keeping me in a box they understood, a role they'd assigned, a position that made them comfortable. The extra pounds were just convenient ammunition. With that gone, they're scrambling to find new ways to maintain the old hierarchy. I take a sip of water, feeling strangely calm as this truth settles inside me. I watch them exchange glances when they think I'm not looking, silent communications about how to handle this new Amanda who doesn't fit their narrative. Jessica is still talking about bridesmaids' dresses, but her words fade into background noise as I study my family with new eyes. The real question isn't whether I've changed enough. It's whether I'm willing to shrink myself again, not my body this time, but my spirit. Oh, make them feel big. I spear a raspberry with my fork, the tines scraping across fine china with a sound that makes my mother wince. Morning sunlight streams through the breakfast nook windows, illuminating Jessica's wedding planning bandera 3-inch monstrosity, with color-coded tabs and plastic sleeve protectors. The florist says peonies will be out of season. Jessica sighs, flipping to a page littered with post-it notes. But I've dreamed of peonies since I was 16. Whatever you want, sweetheart, Dad says, refilling his coffee. We'll fly them in from South America if necessary. Mom nods, patting Jessica's hand. Your day should be perfect. I take a sip of water, letting the conversation flow around me like a river around a stone. Since my arrival yesterday, the undercurrent of tension has steadily risen. My transformation isn't just physical, it's in how I hold myself, how I speak, without seeking approval in every glance. Jessica hasn't commented directly on my weight loss since her initial shocked greeting, but her eyes keep finding me across the table, narrowing slightly before darting away. Amanda, Mom says suddenly, I've been thinking about the bridesmaids' dresses. What about them? I ask, setting down my water glass. Well, since she gestures vaguely at my body. Different from the other girls, maybe you should wear a slightly different shade. Just so everything photographs well. Different how? I ask, though I know exactly what she means. You know. Jessica jumps in, her voice honeyed with faux concern. You're still bigger than my friends. Navy might be more slimming than the periwinkle I've chosen. And less noticeable, Mom adds helpfully. You wouldn't pull focus in the photos. Dad chuckles. Smart thinking. Amanda always did stand out in group pictures. Something shifts inside men at the slow tectonic movement from 14 months ago, but a clean, decisive break. I set my fork down carefully against the edge of my plate. The small clink seems to echo in the sunny breakfast nook. I look at each of them, really look-taking, in Mom's practiced smile, Dad's dismissive half-attention, Jessica's barely concealed satisfaction at putting me back in my place. No. The word emerges, calm and clear. No what, dear? Mom's smile tightens at the corners. No. I won't wear a different color to be less noticeable at Jessica's wedding. I fold my hands in my lap. No, I won't pretend that asking me to hide is about anything other than your discomfort with me taking up space in this family. Jessica's mouth falls open. Are you serious right now? We're trying to help you. You've been helping me my entire life, I say, the words measured and steady. When I was 12 and came home crying because kids called me names, you told me to try harder with my appearance. When I graduated top of my class, you focused on how my gown looked instead of what I'd achieved. When I got into Boston University, you suggested I stay home, where you could keep monitoring my weight. The stunned silence feels like a physical presence at the table. That's not, Mom begins. It is. I don't raise my voice. Every achievement, every milestone in my life has been secondary to my appearance. Every family photo, every holiday, every celebration has included some comment about my body. Every success has been diminished because of how I look. Dad's face reddens. Now wait just a minute, we've always supported you. You've always tolerated me, I correct him. There's a difference. Jessica's eyes fill with tears, her go-to tactic when confronted. Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to ruin my special time? This isn't about your wedding, Jessica. This is about 32 years of subtle and not so subtle cruelty that I've endured from this family. Family loyalty means something, Dad says sternly, his orthodontist perfect teeth clenched. You don't air dirty laundry like this. That's exactly what I'm talking about, I say. When I speak the truth, I'm being disloyal. When Jessica humiliates me, she's being honest. When Mom suggests I make myself invisible at my sister's wedding, she's being helpful. You're always making everything about yourself, Jessica snaps, mascara smudging beneath her eyes. This is my wedding we're talking about. Mine. I don't match their volume or their anger. Something powerful happens in remaining calm while they spiral. Would you treat a friend the way you've treated me? Would you tell a colleague to make herself less noticeable? Would you point out a neighbor's weight at a celebration? Their silence answers for them. I reach into my purse and pull out an envelope, placing it on the table. This is my gift to you, Jessica. It should cover the cost of the band you wanted, but said was too expensive. She reaches for it, confusion replacing anger. I won't be attending as a bridesmaid. I continue. As a guest. What? Mom's hand flies to her throat. Amanda, you can't mean that. I do. I push back from the table, stand and smooth the fabric of my dress, a simple blue sheath that I would never have worn in my previous life. I wish you a beautiful wedding and a beautiful life. But I won't be there to see it. Jessica stares at the check in her hands, suddenly aware that she's losing both her emotional punching bag and significant financial support in one moment. You can't, we're your family, Mom stammers, tears spilling down her carefully powdered cheeks. Amanda, please, I'm sure we can work this out. Dad says nothing, his expression shifting from anger to something closer to uncomfortable recognition. He sees it now, the truth in my words. The years of casual cruelty laid bare. I walk to the door, each step lighter than the last, leaving behind the weight of their expectations and the prison of their approval. The silence follows me out like a shadow, finally detaching itself from my heels. My hands tremble as I slide the key card into my hotel room door. The light flashes green, and I push through, letting the heavy door slam behind me with a satisfying thud of finality. Inside, I collapse onto the edge of the bed, my breath coming in short gasps, but my mind is crystalline clear. I hadn't planned the confrontation. For 14 months, I'd imagined a dozen scenarios, me standing tall, delivering perfectly crafted lines that would make them see me, truly see me. Instead, the moment arrived organically, born from Jessica's casual cruelty over wedding seating arrangements. We'll put Amanda at the corner table with the cousins, she'd said, not bothering to lower her voice as I returned from the bathroom. That way she won't be too visible in the group photos. Something inside me, something that had been building since that first dinner 14 months ago, simply snapped into place. Not with anger or drama, but with a quiet certainty. My phone vibrates against the hotel nightstand the 7th time in 30 minutes. I glance at the screen. 3 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Dad, and 17 unread text messages from Jessica. I pick up the phone and scroll through them without opening. The preview bubbles tell the story. How dare you embarrass me like? And always making everything about your feelings. And selfish after everything we've... I set the phone down without reading further. The accusations are familiar, I've heard their echoes my entire life. But now they sound different. Like a foreign language I once spoke fluently, but have since forgotten. My voicemail notification chimes. Mom's voice fills the room when I play it. Amanda Louise, I don't know what got into you today. Your father and I are. Her voice cracks with practiced emotion. We're very disappointed. To treat your sister this way during her special time is... I raised you better than this. The message ends, and another begins. Mom again, her tone hardened. The caterer needs final numbers by Tuesday. I expect you'll have come to your senses by then. Another beep, another message. This time it's Dad, his voice low and uncomfortable. Amanda. Call your mother. This is getting out of hand. I delete them all with 3 quick taps. The room's silence envelops me. For the first time in hours, I breathe deeply, filling my lungs completely. I kick off my shoes and lie back against the hotel pillows, staring at the textured ceiling. When my phone rings again, I nearly silence it without looking. But the screen shows Aunt Martha instead of my expected tormentors. Amanda, are you all right? Her voice is warm, concerned. I was there. I saw everything. I'm okay, I say, surprised to find it's actually true. I'm at the Marriott. Good for you, she says, and I hear genuine approval. I've been waiting 30 years for someone in this family to say what needed saying. Martha, Dad's older sister, the family's black sheep for choosing art over marriage, has always been a peripheral figure at family gatherings. I suddenly realize I know almost nothing about her. They'll never forgive me, I say. Not entirely sure if that's a lament or liberation. Forgiveness isn't what you need from them, sweetheart. Her voice carries decades of understanding. What you need is to forgive yourself for believing you deserve their treatment. A weight I didn't know I was carrying lifts from my chest. By Sunday evening, the battlefield has expanded beyond the dining room. Jessica's carefully curated Instagram page features a somber post about family heartbreak and facing adversity before the happiest day of my life. The comment section overflows with sympathy and outrage. On her behalf, distant cousins I haven't seen since childhood send messages asking what's wrong with me. Mom's sister calls to just understand both sides. Dad's golf buddy's wife stops Mom after church to offer condolences as if someone had died. I watch it unfold from the quiet distance of my Boston apartment, where I returned after checking out of the hotel at dawn. I type no responses, offer no defenses. The story they're crafting doesn't require my participation. Only Aunt Martha calls regularly, sharing her own stories of family alienation with dry humor that makes me laugh despite everything. Your grandmother once introduced me as Martha, our daughter who paints instead of parents, she tells me during our 3rd call. At my first gallery opening. What did you do? I ask. Introduced her as my mother who criticizes instead of supports. We didn't speak for 2 years after that. She chuckles. Best 2 years of my 30s, frankly. When Jessica's wedding weekend arrives, I'm walking barefoot along the shore of Sanibel Island. The white sand yields beneath my feet as gentle waves lap at my ankles. My phone stays in my beach bag, powered off, nestled beside sunscreen and a dog-eared paperback. 3 pelicans dive into the Gulf waters as the sun begins its descent. The horizon burns orange and pink, colors no designer bridesmaid dress could capture. I breathe in salt air instead of tulle and hairspray, listen to waves instead of organ music. This presence, this gift of peace I've given myself feels weightless, after years of carrying the burden of seeking approval. I walk until sunset fades to twilight, until stars begin puncturing the darkening sky. With each step, the weight lifts further, until I feel almost buoyant. The realization hits me as I turn back toward my rented cottage. I am free. The notifications begin 3 days after the wedding. Former high school classmates and hometown acquaintances reaching out after seeing Jessica's wedding photos plastered across social media. You weren't at Jessica's wedding? Everything okay? Then, Unexpectedly, private messages that surprised me. I saw what Jessica posted about you. I remember how she treated you in high school. I should have said something then. And your sister made my life hell junior year. Seeing you stand up to her gives me hope. And I cut contact with my toxic family last year. If you need someone who understands, I'm here. Each message reveals a thread of a tapestry I never knew existed, people who recognize the dynamic I thought was invisible to everyone but me. A community forms in my inbox, built from shared experiences and quiet solidarity. 1 month after Jessica's wedding, I sit at my kitchen table with a cream-colored note card before me. My therapist suggested this step a letter to my parents, not for their benefit but for mine. Define your boundaries, Dr. Levine had said, not as punishment but as protection. My pen hovers over the paper before finding its purpose. Dear Mom and Dad, I am well and hope you are too. I've had time to reflect on our family patterns and my place within them. Going forward, I can only participate in relationships that include mutual respect. I lay out clear terms for future contact: no comments about my appearance, no comparisons to Jessica, conversations limited to 20 minutes unless demonstrably pleasant. The final line comes easily. I'll always love you, but I've learned to love myself too. I addressed the envelope not to Ohio but to myself, tucking it into my journal as a contract with the person who matters most to me. That evening, I call Aunt Martha to accept her invitation for Thanksgiving. I'm making sweet potatoes, I tell her. Perfect, she says. I never could stand your mother's recipe anyway. We laugh together, two branches of a family tree that grew toward the light instead of remaining in shadow. I stand in the doorway of my Boston apartment kitchen, watching the golden November light spill across faces that have become more familiar to me than those I share DNA with. Aunt Martha's silver-streaked hair catches the light as she leans forward, laughing at something Sarah just said. Mike, who pushed me through those first grueling workouts, gestures expansively while telling a story to Raj from my cooking group. Elena from marketing arranges a final dish on my dining table, the same oak as my parents, but without the weight of disapproval etched into its surface. The scent of sage and rosemary mingles with cinnamon and nutmeg spices I've learned to use fearlessly in the past year. My apple pie cools on the counter, made with my mother's recipe but altered with less sugar. More cinnamon made mine. Need any help? David asks, suddenly beside me. His hand brushes mine, a gentle presence that still surprises me after 3 months of dating. Unlike other men I've known, he never seems to be evaluating whether I'm enough. Just taking it all in, I say, squeezing his fingers. The promotion came in February, senior analytics manager, with a team of my own. I'd rushed to call home before remembering I didn't need to anymore. Instead, I'd called Aunt Martha, who'd whooped so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You always had it in you, she'd said. You just needed to believe it yourself. My first presentation to the board last spring had gone flawlessly, me voice steady, my data impeccable. No one commented on my appearance. They were too busy implementing my recommendations. The quarterly results spoke for themselves. The weekly calls with Aunt Martha have become my anchor, her artist perspective, helping me see beauty in unexpected places, including myself. Families are like paintings, she told me once. Some need to be restored, others are better appreciated from a distance. My laptop chimes from the living room, probably another email. Last week, it was from Dad. Thinking of you, it had said. The house feels empty this time of year. Not quite an apology, but an acknowledgement of absence. Mom still sends terse updates about relatives and neighbors, carefully avoiding any reference to what happened. Her last message included a link to a diet program, Old Habits Dying Hard, but ended with, "You looked well in your Facebook photo." A grudging olive branch I've chosen to accept with the same measured distance. Jessica's Christmas card arrived early this year. A formal family portrait of Brad, their new golden retriever puppy. Season's greetings, the Matthews family, printed in elegant script. No personal note, just her signature. I've placed it on my bookshelf rather than the trash progress of a sort. Amanda? Elena calls from the dining room. We're ready when you are. I carry the carved turkey to the table, remembering last Thanksgiving's silent meal at my parents' house. The contrast between then and now sends a wave of gratitude through me so powerful I need to steady myself. Before we start, I say, looking at these faces that have become my chosen family, I want to thank you all for being here, not just today, but throughout this year. Last month, I started volunteering with a youth program for teenagers struggling with body image. Melissa, a 15-year-old with eyes too old for her face, had confided that her mother and sister constantly criticized her weight. Your worth isn't measured by their approval, I'd told her, the words rising from a well of hard-earned wisdom. It's measured by your kindness, your courage, your willingness to stand up for yourself. Seeing recognition dawn in her eyes, I'd glimpsed my own journey reflected back the painful path that led to this moment. Now I raise my glass to these people who've helped me redefine family, to connections built on respect and acceptance, to new traditions, Aunt Martha adds, her eyes shining with unshed tears. On my coffee table sits a photo album filled with moments from this redemptive year: hiking trips, cooking classes, my first 10K finish line. Beside it stands an empty frame and out waiting to be filled, but a reminder of what I've left behind and what lies ahead. The conversation flows around me as I touch the door frame, grounding myself in this new reality. I'm Amanda Jenkins, and I finally found my way home.